In today's video, I'm going to talk about my top 10 favorite David Austin roses for spring 2025. So first I'll start with a little bit about my garden. I have over 40 David Austin varieties in my garden and about almost 50 actual roses. I have some of them I have more than one, and they are all 1, 2, and 3-year-old roses. I have 3 that this is our 3rd season, about 25 that I bought last year, and I have 15. Easy for me to do the math. I have 15 new ones this year. And so we're going to be talking mostly about 2nd year roses because those are the ones that did the best this spring for me. So I did want to point out, just down this little rabbit hole, last year when I had the 25 new David Austin roses, they were almost all bare root, or they were all bare root, and the majority of them were grafted. This year, I got the majority were own root, and they were a lot smaller. And whereas last year I got them in March, and I had blooms on every single one by May, this year I got them also in March, and I've had very few bloom. In fact, the ones that I've had bloom, I did not get from David Austin, and they were grafted roses. So anyways, I just kind of wanted to clarify that if you got some David Austin roses this year direct from David Austin and found that they were not blooming yet, I think they're just, when they're own root, they're just a younger rose. So it puts them back, pretty much a year behind the other one. So they will catch up. But anyways, I'm hoping in the fall, then I will get a really nice flush from all of the new roses. I also wanted to point out, last year, every single rose went into a pot in March. They all bloomed their first blooms in a pot. And then majority of them stayed in a container through the summer. Some were put in the ground starting last summer, some in the fall, and some this winter or early spring. This year, all of my new ones went into the ground. Yeah, I think all of my David Austins went into the ground. So that could be one of the reasons that things are a little bit different too. But I did have a few star performers this spring, and I wanted to tell you what my favorites were. And this is in no particular order, and we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, the first one is James L. Austin. This one was released in 2017. The blooms are deep magenta pink. It has a light fruity fragrance. It literally took off after I put it in the ground last fall. It was in a small pot. It was in one of those pots that you thought, I'll just put it in here for now until I can get a bigger pot, and then I will move it. But then you never get the bigger pot. So it was a very narrow pot. So it did have its roots squeezed, and the roses that I left in these pots through the summer all struggled compared to all the other David Austins. These were a lot of my worst performing David Austin last year were the ones in this smaller pot. But I got it at the ground. I think I put it in September, and by November, it was absolutely stunning. Now, I forgot to mention that I am in zone 7B, Middle Tennessee. It's hot and humid in the summers. It can get 95 degrees in July, and we have clay soil. So really hard clay soil. I did a lot of amending. I hired somebody to break up all the clay soil, take half of it out with pickaxes and fill it. Overall I ordered 30 yards of soil to mix throughout my beds, but this couple of these beds, I had 10 yards of good soil mixed in with a 50-50 mix. Other areas, I just decided I wasn't going to break up the clay soil, and I just kind of scratched or kind of loosened it with a broad fork, just that first 6 inches. And then I mounded another 12 to 15 inches of good soil on top. And I just made a berm, or I just made an individual mound. I have a lot of individual mounds in one area of my yard, so that the rose is sitting about 12 inches above the ground, so about 6 inches of the roots might actually go into the ground, but the water level in the clay is deeper than that 6 inches. So they've been doing really good. So that's what I've been doing. So that's the rest of my garden. Anyways, James Austin, once I got him in the ground, he was so gorgeous. It was out my back window. I just walk by and I'd be like, oh my goodness, look at that. That is just fabulous. Great cut flower. Yeah, definitely a showstopper. The next favorite was Crown Princess Margarita. This one was released in 1999. The blooms are these beautiful cupped blooms of apricot that fade to yellow. It has a strong fruity fragrance. This was the first David Austin rose to bloom for me, but being a climber, it is also the one that I barely pruned. So I think that had a lot to do with it being first. But it filled out really nicely, and it is consistently blooming. I mean, had that overall first flush, and now I might just have a spray here or there blooming, but there's always a bloom somewhere on it, if not more than one. So anyway, and it is getting ready to do a second flush now, about 5 weeks after the first flush. The climber can reach up to 12 feet tall, and I have mine growing up on an obelisk, and it does well in full sun or part shade. Mine's in full sun. Okay, the next one is Windermere 2004 release. It has blooms of pale yellow that fade to white in the sun. So it's a very, very light buttery yellow, kind of like a Claire Austin, a little creamier than a Claire Austin. It also has those cupped blooms that seem to shatter pretty easily, but it's really beautiful on the bush. This is one of the first David Austin roses I purchased. This is the third year. It was in a really big pot the first 2 years. Last year, it really struggled with rose midge. I think it was in my pots. All of the 3 that I brought over from my rental had rose midge, and it's very difficult to get rid of. And yeah, I would use a systemic product to try and get rid of the midge, and then when it was done, then I planted them in the ground, so kind of getting it all new soil also. So rose midge has a short life cycle, so it will be born, eat, lay eggs, and die in about 7 days. So to get rid of it, you do need to use something systemic. I use something with imicloprid, however you say that, and you have to use it every 3 days, at least 30 times, to kind of break up that life cycle. So had rose midge, didn't really get any blooms last year. The way you tell are the little buds, they just turn brown. They stay really small, like the size of my pinky nail, and they turn brown and die. And then if you look really carefully or get a magnifying glass, the rose midge are just itty bitty little white things. And you can see them, and they're down in kind of where the bloom comes up from between the stems. So devastating. They spread really fast. If you have them, you just need to get on top of it. I personally would not be trying to try and get the beneficial insects, do this, do that, and hope that, you're creating this wonderful environment, because by then you'll have an army of rose midge everywhere on all your roses. So that's just my opinion on it, that rose midge is something you need to jump on. Very difficult to get rid of when you have a full infestation across an entire rose garden. Very, very sad to see all these buds and then just watch them fall off. Unlike thrips, where they actually look like they're about to open or might open slightly and kind of are wonky from there, but these buds never really get bigger than your pinky nail. Okay, so I had rose midge, got rid of it, put it in the ground in part shade. Well, it gets morning sun, and it has been blooming like crazy. It has a beautiful, strong myrrh fragrance, which I'm just kind of learning what myrrh is. Not my favorite rose fragrance, but it is a nice fragrance. But I prefer a rose scent on my roses. But to me, it's still a very nice fragrance. Yeah, it's just been blooming in these little clusters nonstop since April. The next rose on my top 10 list is the Annick. This one was released in 2002. It is the very first David Austin rose that I put in my shopping cart because I wanted a cottage garden and I thought David Austin roses look like peonies. And so it is a pink cupped rose, beautiful, long, on these tall, sturdy stems. First year I had a bunch of octopus canes, but then that kind of gave way year 2 and 3. She has a strong old rose fragrance, which I love, and she's just exquisite. I mean, she just blooms over and over and over again. I gave her a really hard prune this year, taking it down to maybe 5 or 7 canes, and she still performed amazingly and was covered in blooms nonstop since she started blooming at the end of April. Desdemona is another favorite of mine. It's a 2015 release. I actually have 5 of this shrub because 4 of them were given to me by 2 different people. In my garden, the one shrub that I had is so beautiful. I did have to move it. It was in an area that was too wet and it started wilting. So I knew it was not doing well. When I dug it up, it was, just this puddle of water underneath it. So I moved it somewhere else. Took a little bit to recover, but this spring, I mean, so beautiful. The blooms look almost pearlescent. I mean, they're just stunning. They also shatter pretty easy. You can cut them, stick them, I'll put a stem in some bud vases, but they don't last more than a couple of days. But they're just so pretty, and it's that typical quintessential cottage garden bloom. The reason my friends did not like them, well, one just struggled, and she gave it to me last fall, and it's still pretty small. So I don't know if hers is just a struggling one because it is right next to my other one, and it is still struggling a little bit. It is definitely slower to get going. And then the other 3 were given to me recently because this friend likes to grow them in 3s, in like the triangle, like how David Austin says to grow. Anytime she buys a rose, she'll buy 3 of them and put them in a triangle and put them pretty close together. But I'm not sure that's the best environment for a lot of roses here in Middle Tennessee because of our high humidity, and then all the moisture, and we get strong winds, but it's not this soft, gentle breeze to kind of dry things out all the time. So I think she struggled with black spot, and she just wanted to purchase roses that were a little more disease resistant. I actually haven't found more black spot than any other rose. I mean, all my roses have some. I might pluck a leaf here and there, and I do preventative sprays. So I'm not finding it any more difficult than any other rose, and I'm super excited for the 3 that I just got recently to bloom. I know they'll be doing amazing. I just got them about a week ago, got them in the ground a little over a week ago, so give it a couple of weeks and then they should take off. Anyway, strong lemony fragrance and beautiful flushes all summer long. Now, one of the reasons I can stay on top of all my roses is because I have drip irrigation. I've done a couple of videos on drip irrigation and how I set mine up. I do it myself, so as I buy new roses or move roses, I can swap things up, and I have one line in all the different areas of my gardens. I have one line going towards the ground, and I do still have some pots, and so I'll have the other line going to the pots, and then I manage them all on my phone. They're all Wi-Fi enabled timers, and I have a little blurb because Rainpoint sent me their newest Wi-Fi dual outlet timer, and I wanted to test it because I used their older version on my own. I purchased a bunch of them on my own, and so I do have this little blurb. So I guess it's a sponsored video, even though they didn't pay me, but they did send me the timer to test out. So I'll be right back. Because I've been adding all these perennials, I need to update my irrigation system, and Rainpoint has graciously sent me their newest 2-zone Wi-Fi timer with hub. If you've watched any of my other irrigation videos, and I think I have 2 of them out there, I have been using the Rainpoint Wi-Fi 2 hub timers, but their previous version, for the last 2 years. And I like them because they're dependable. I like to see what's happening and how much I'm watering on my phone. I like to be able to run the water if it's an exceptionally hot day and I want to just run it for a few more additional moments in the afternoon. So it's really handy to be able to access that online. I do like having 2 outlets with each timer. I mean, I have 6 active old ones right now. So I've got 12 zones right now, and I just added 2 more. So 14 zones, all using the Wi-Fi timers. This newest one does have a different app. So I do have to access it through a different app, but it sets up pretty much the same way. The hub, I find, is easier to connect to your router and easier to connect to the timer than in the past. I used to struggle a little bit, sometimes have to restart it a couple of times. A couple of the features, when you have a Wi-Fi timer, it does have this new smart watering feature, which I've not tried, but supposedly, I mean, I did look at it, and you go into and you tell what your crop is, what kind of soil you have, and then it uses, I don't know if it's AI, or the internet, and it looks at the weather, and it will figure out how much water you should be getting for that plant. But I don't really use that. I just like to put everything on a timer. And when you go into the app, it does have, if you look at the plans, you get to set up your plans. And most of my plans are set up for 3 or 4 times a week, usually for 15 minutes of watering. So you can set what time it starts, and of course my different zones because of my water pressure. I have everything starting at different times. And then you can have your repeat. It does have the rain delay, so you manually, if you know it's going to be raining for a week and you're out of town, you can make sure it's not raining, or if you're in town, you can make sure it's not raining. You can turn it on manually. So again, if you know it's a really hot afternoon, you can have it just run, or if you're testing your system, you can have it run. Now you can do manual from the app, and also you can just walk up and push the button on the timer, and it will run for a predetermined amount of time. I have mine at the default, which is 10 minutes. What I really like about these timers over any other timer is it will tell me how much water has gone through the outlet. So I know if it takes 20 gallons to water this section of my yard, and then all of a sudden one day it's 60 gallons, I know some of my emitters are leaking, and I can go check it out. And you would think, well, that doesn't happen very often. And it doesn't happen very often, but it happens at least once a season, if not twice a season. So it's really helpful, for me to see how much has been watered each zone. Now, the other thing, in the past, on the old ones, you just saw how much water came out the last watering. But the new one actually has an event log, and it will tell you every time it waters, how much it watered, what zone it was watering, and everything like that. So that makes it really, really handy. Now, I have the timers out in my different areas, and I pretty much have one zone set for in the ground and one zone set for in the pots. So I might water my pots, well, right now every other day, but in the summer I'll be watering my pots every single day, sometimes twice a day. And then in the ground, right now I'm watering twice a week, but in the summer I might be watering 3 times a week. So it is nice to have the different zones on one timer, so you're only using, one hose connection from your spigot. Okay, now we are back to continue on the top 10. My 6th favorite, again, this is not in any order, but this is number 6, is Elizabeth. And it was on my last year video as one of my least favorite. It was in one of those smaller pots, but I put her in the ground in the fall, just like that James L. Austin. She took off almost immediately and was so amazing in the fall. And she has a pink, flat kind of rosette blooms that fade to white, and she's extremely fragrant along the lines of Gertrude Jekyll and Harlow Carr, that you kind of just walk by, or you get a light breeze and you're like, gosh, what is that beautiful rose scent, or where is that rose scent coming from? And it's Elizabeth. It is a prolific bloomer, and it thrives in both full sun and part shade. Now, I will say that kind of flat rosette bloom is not my favorite. I just don't think it's that pretty. I mean, they're pretty before they open all the way, but I just don't love the shape. But the fragrance more than makes up for it. And it is a fairly wide bush or shrub. Yeah, I just, I think you need one. I think you need one kind of by where you hang out and sit, so that you can get the fragrance, because it really is lovely. Sceptred Isle is my next one. It is a 1996 release, and it has soft pink petals, and it's a more open bloom, so you can see the yellow stamens inside. It's a real pollinator favorite. I love this rose. She grows in sprays. They kind of lean over. They lean over, kind of nod. And last year I had my zinnias growing up around it, so then I had these beautiful nodding roses around my zinnias. It was so gorgeous. It was exactly what I was thinking of when I wanted a cottage garden, look or feel. Another shrub that's a little bit larger. I think she's 5.5 feet tall and wide, but super beautiful, strong myrrh fragrance. The sprays are excellent for cutting. Oh, and then I do support the canes, the long canes, as they're kind of leaning out and growing wider, with the peony supports. I don't have a fully round cage. Actually, Elizabeth, I have a fully round peony kind of cage on it, but I just use the little panels, and I'll just prop up a cane that might get too long or too heavy. Really, really beautiful. Okay, Emily Bronte. This one, if I had to take one off or swap one out, it would be my Emily Bronte. I do love this rose. It's released in 2018. It's another one with those flat rosette blooms, so they're not as fun for me to look at. These are pale pink, creamy, or apricot. And it's another one with a strong tea rose fragrance. It does well in part shade, but it's really blooming really well. And I have two of them. And so if I had to swap it out, I'd swap it out for Carding Mill. All right, but it's on my list. I put it on my list, did the research on it, and then, I kept going back and forth. But it also has a really beautiful fragrance. First year, it did nothing for me. Like literally, I had a couple blooms when I first planted it, and then nothing. It grew really tall, beautiful, healthy shrub with 0 buds all summer, all fall. I was like, if it doesn't bud out, this year, it's out of there. But I did have it covered with buds this spring, and it has been consistently blooming since then. So one of my favorites from last year is also on my favorites this year, and that is Boscobel. It is a 2012 release, and it features these really large, deep pink with salmon or corally center blooms. It is a low shrub, about 3.5 feet. Makes it perfect for the front of your border. Great cut flower, great fragrance. It's a myrrh fragrance again. Just really unique, really beautiful. And I have 2 of her this year. But again, my second one I did get from David Austin. It has not bloomed yet, so I'm hoping it will catch up at least by the fall. And then the last one on my list is a first-year rose for me. It is Evelyn. Now, Evelyn was a 1991 release, and it was discontinued for a short time. It just came back, I think, for sale last fall on the David Austin website, but you could purchase it, I think, starting last year on other authorized retailers. Uh, this is a large shrub with large pink tinged with apricot, light pink tinged with apricot blooms. They're deeply cupped but flat across the top. It has a really beautiful fruity fragrance. And this is the rose that, you know, when you see people with an armful of roses, I mean, Evelyn would be the one that you could do that with. I mean, they're just sturdy on the stems, great cut flowers, great for arranging, but so beautiful on the shrub also. I did purchase two of them at the same time. Yeah, from the same place, same time, same place. I don't know if one is shading out the other one from the afternoon sun, because one is doing a lot better than the other. I might try and scooch it over. I did have them a little bit closer together, but I am starting to get a few blooms on the smaller one. But it is just so gorgeous. Yeah, it's definitely one that I probably would want 5 of, like the Desdemona, so I could have plenty to cut and plenty to enjoy in the garden. So that's it. Those are my top 10 David Austin roses for spring 2025. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, I would love if you would subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. Hit that like button. I have pivoted over a year ago, but from over 50 beauty to gardening, and I really need more gardening people to subscribe, so they stop suggesting me to my old beauty beauty people. So anyway, so if you came here as a gardener, I would love if you would subscribe and hit that like button, and we will see you next time.